All right. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Kayleen of Loving Life with Light. So Monday through Friday, I'll be posting a video covering universal astrology. So we'll look at charts, graphs, data, activity, and 3D programs to understand what is happening in our galaxy, our solar system, our planet, and thus ourselves. So today is the 14th of July, 2020. And if you didn't know already, there is totally a solar storm going on right now. And this is something that accumulated over the 9th, and we'll see what this looks like. This is Wage's World, and he's awesome at just covering everything and being really timely. But this is the mass that came out of our sun on the 9th. And just in yesterday's video, I posted just the limbs that are coming off of the solar sun that we looked at in yesterday's video are massive. And this though is a coronal mass ejection. This is a CME storm. And there's actually 2 of them. So you can watch this video where he's commenting on it. And as well, the overall accumulation of these storms happens over a period of days, and this was a really close hit to Earth. So this video is by Tabitha, and she's a space weather news forecaster. So if you want to learn more about the storm that's going on, I highly suggest to just go look at those scientists, those reports, because they're far more accurate on the science than I can be. But it is to note that this ejection that happened was really close to Earth here. And it just repeats. So, and this was a little bit after, so just July 14th. So this is like right now, impact time, UTC, it was exactly at 0. So I'm here in Washington, we're 8 hours behind. So what that would mean for me is it hit yesterday afternoon to me. That would mean the 13th at about 5 o'clock. So, and that's when, on Twitter, I jumped on and started tweeting because I started getting notifications. So yesterday at 7:45, I got the Space Weather Live alert for KP Index. I was sitting there talking to my friend, and so I posted that right away, and so the impact started. And at that time, this is what the Schumann looked like. We can look at it real quick and see what it looks like. If it's yeah, see, here we go. So here's just the spike showing up, and this does have to do with it because you got to think all that extra energy that's coming in the north and south poles from these pushes of mass energy from the sun come in at the north and south poles. So there's just a peek, okay, at what's going on. And so here's another one that I got from Asteroid Alert. This is a really awesome asteroid watching app, basically. But it showed activity alerting me of strong protons and being emitted from the sun in this graph format. This is like Earth. So I'm a total like app junkie. I have so many different apps and programs and things that you guys will see me use and screenshot and share. And so just so you're aware, I'm all about trying to make the resources available to you guys. The ones that are public. Like, what's so cool about 2020 is this is all so public. So at any point in time, you can just come here and go straight to yourself. I'm still in the process of building the actual library, but I have all the resources available to share, is the point. And I'm going to make them really, hopefully, available to you guys to just come and use and check out. Like, Solar Scope is one of the primary ones that you're going to see me use almost every day. And you can just come to the website, or you can just get it as an app or download it yourself. And any other ones that you see me use a lot, like Google Earth, these are Astrologue and Planet Dance should be on here as well. You're going to see me use today. just come here to the thank you page, and that's where you can get started. And I have a full-on website that has a whole bunch of listed resources as well for stuff that I talk about. Relevant science norms. This whole page is the solar cycle and space news watch. So this is where I post videos and links directly related to that. So depending on your interests, you might be more interested in the stuff that I talk about what it means to us and like the energy and the psychology of things, where others might be interested in learning more about the science. So this is where I want them both to be accessible to anyone that has new or expanded interest in such relation, and being able to bridge the gap between them is what I'm trying to help with. So just a bit of a preview there, and I will put together a post of the recommended videos, like Wages World and stuff today. These will be on the post that will have this video on it. So look in the description. You can go to the post and check these out. And you can follow me on Twitter if you're into the real-time update things when they're going on. I'm pretty good about it, or I'm getting to be better about it. So that's what's going on. And so what's the relevance then to astrology? Because, okay, it matters to us. This is hitting us right now. We're all probably animated and hyped up today because the whole world is, and the solar activity of everything is just hyped up. We're finally getting the mass of that ejection that happened on the 9th. So we see the activity of the sun, and we see the power of the sun growing. And so what that means for astrology is a lot, So before we get in, let's get into the charts here for a minute. And here on the left, I know it's probably hard for you guys to read that are seeing on mobile. However, this is a real-time clock, so you'll see it tick over every once in a while, which I think is awesome. So this is the helio from yesterday. What I want to do is peek at what I've got going on here so that everyone understands. I have this events of July 2020 going on and previews of the whole week. However, it's a day-by-day activity, and I like to take in effect what's going on that day or the day after. So what I'm going to do to yesterday's chart is say at about hour 15, storm hits, and here soon, as we do this together in live time and over the course of doing this video, over the course of this month, we'll fill in a lot of activity. Well, what about earthquakes and stuff? Well, that's already started up here, and I haven't done the stuff for today, but you can see that, well, I've got a jump start on it, and there's been a lot of activity going on in earthquakes. On the 13th is when I last updated this. So again, I haven't updated the stuff from today, but earthquakes is a thing. We've had a lot of them going on. I do have a program that's real cool that we can look at to see this stuff. So I'm gonna say age at 3, and then we can look at where these are happening and what's going on there, because there's been a lot of different activity. So then when I have I'm not going to do it right now, but here soon we'll be able to go see like where these earthquakes are and what's happening. We also have some increase in volcano activity going on in Japan, and this is a big deal, you guys. This activity that's going on in Japan at this point on Earth is extremely important. So it deserves a lot of attention just by itself. But this is looking at age 7, which is far back my program goes. And we can see there's been a ton of activity. So when you look at this, and then you look at something like the I'm going to get it up. prediction centers, quake watch sites and things, and we look at this map that's up here, we can see that's why. That's that big globe right here is that big section right here. It's going off. 5 magnitude, okay? 5.2s. See, these are pretty big stuff. So let's add on some more detail here. When you see it go up above, it means like these ones are here are deep. They're deep. This guy as well here is deep. Where the ones that are closer to the surface, like these over here, are closer to the surface of the Earth. We feel them more. However, these ones that are deep, there's just a lot to it. Okay, so I'm not going to get into it totally, but we can see the accuracy of our science in real time is where it's at. And these points on the Earth are really important for what's going on in the magnetic field. And when we look at, I've got to get an image from a Suspicious Observer's video. But this is the convergence kind of zone of the North Poles moving if we were to have a North Pole switch. So when we see activity here going off like we are, and solar activity backing that, we've got to start to wonder, and we got to start to watch closer, and be a little bit more aware, because it matters where you live. It matters where you are in the world, in this complex, and the living system. So how astrology can help, and how being aware of the science behind what's going on, the two when they meet is a beautiful thing. And so today I want to introduce some of those concepts in relevance to astrology, which is really where, you know, the mapping and understanding comes in for our own personal lives. So we'll note these things along the way. And I think what I'm going to do is, for patrons, I'm going to send you guys a copy of this whole document each month. So not only will you see like it develop, but you'll then have it for your own records. And maybe what you could do with that is, if you keep any kind of healing journal, or a spiritual health journal, or you keep track of your energetic wellness, and you're into self-healing and things already, this is going to be a good channel for you and good self-awareness to have about what's going on. And I will help you to understand why throughout this week. So what I want to do before we get too much farther is look at what each of the planets mean and what they're really all about. So I'm going to read off some of the notes. The sun that's currently in Gemini, and I can move this over so we can see where they're at. So the sun, which is the symbol of a circle and a dot when you see it in charts, is really about, it's commonly interpreted as the self. And the reason for that is it is the life force of the entire system. Of all life on our planet and ourselves is based on and depends upon the sun. So life is the sun. Sun is life. And in a lot of ways, esoterically, sun is like the spirit, the inner spirit, and what it represents to us in astrology. And when we see sun activity like we're seeing today, it means the inner self, the real self, the living essence. And so the moon, which revolves around the earth, meteorology-wise, and to do with Earth and life, the moon really generates the cycles. It regulates the timing, and it has a lot to do with our emotions are a lot the same way as far as our lymphatic system and our hormones are concerned. We run through cycles, and when we get upset or we have different moods, it can be like eruptions, and these eruptions can happen particularly when we're having a lot of activity from the sun or earthquakes or surrounding things. Then we have Mercury, and Mercury is, we'll see in a moment, I'll throw up the 3D program, has a lot to do with our mind, our mentality, messages, expressions, modes and mannerisms, body language, momentum, and it's really quickened, it's erratic. We'll see this in motion. Venus, which is currently in Taurus, and this is in power in Taurus. So is Mercury. Mercury in Gemini. Gemini and Mercury go hand in hand. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the Zodiac. They'll probably be tomorrow. Venus loves being in Taurus anyways, but has a lot to do with our heart-centered being, our heart thoughts, the depth of who we are in coherence, in relation and communications with others, and especially to ourselves and the world around us. Earth, when we look at Helio, is a whole book. It's just a whole thing on itself. But basically, how I'm going to be interpreting Earth when we're seeing it in respect to where it's at in the system, because it also moves rather quickly in comparison to the outer planets still, is that it's the living essence of the creatures or the children. And it's also, when you start to look at it in perspective in relation to the sun and deep space, it really is kind of the eye. Like, we're the living consciousness. We're able to actually perceive what's going on through consciousness, whereas it's just a really unique thing in itself. But anyways, it's like the breath and the action of living. It's the essence of the solar life in form, in a place, consciously perceiving itself. Mars is really, you hear a lot about Mars being of war. And so to us, what that means astrologically is it's the inner warrior, it's the inner drive and motivation that keeps you going and continue striving forward to live. Without Mars' essence, it would be difficult to find motivation even to care enough to live another day. And so Mars is the constant effort that it takes to survive. Jupiter, and loves being in Sagittarius too, this is its home sign and it's in power right now, is the giant like ancestor. It's the biggest mass other than our solar system, our solar sun, and it's just a giant. So it's about growth, and it's very chaotic in nature when you get close to it and you start looking at what Jupiter really is scientifically, elementally. It's really all about growth and expansion. It has a lot of moons and planets and activity, and it has a lot of power in the balance of the entire solar system. Saturn and Jupiter are the biggest planets, so when they move or they fall out of order, they fall out of sync, it messes with everything. Not that they do, but if they would. So we know that it is Jupiter and Saturn that actually hold balance for the entire planetary system. So it's really interesting to think about, especially when you start to realize that in between Mars and Jupiter is the asteroid belt. So and this is the largest gap that comes between two planets, is between Mars and Jupiter, and it's because there's a bunch of asteroids there. So was that, a birthing ground for other planets, or was that the birthing ground for planets? We don't know. But anyways, Jupiter is about expansion, and it's the difference between the inner world and the inner planets and the outer planets and the outer expression. So we get more to do with a lot of the generational. We get a lot more to do with, instead of the day-to-day life, the evolutionary life that you live throughout the whole entire expansion of one's expression. Saturn in Capricorn is also in power. Saturn is about responsibility, restriction, purpose, peace, and law in place. Uranus is not necessarily, it can be happy in Aries. It's not a bad place, it's just not its home. Change, timing, reconstruction, building, foundation, chaos, and order. He's basically the grandfather up there in a place where he can just throw lightning bolts at us. So you watch Uranus and hope that he doesn't throw lightning bolts at us, but he always does. Timing is up to Saturn and Uranus combined. Neptune is about the illumination. It has a lot to do with consciousness, subconsciousness, the deep consciousness, the living consciousness. This is the consciousness that's shared with all consciousness, so almost like the superconscious, not just the sub, but the superconscious, living in action. And this has to do with the logos. So we're talking light logos, solar to solar suns. So now we're talking star language. So if you're going to talk star language, then we need to talk galactic language, because there are 7 major suns in our galactic system, and this has been talked about esoterically a long time. And now we know, because we know something about our galaxy. Pluto is actually considered a dwarf planet, so I could spend all day just talking about the asteroids or the dwarf planets or the all of that, but that's for another episode. So Pluto's kind of all on its own. Astrologically, it has a lot to do with power, purpose, presentation, and just the outward farsight that we need to survive. So to me, Pluto also has a lot to do with survival instinct, which comes through personal power and will and devotion, really, in kind of in a way. So now let's look at how we can look at this 2D format of things. Sorry, this is the 15th. We need the 14th. So we'll look at the charts for today, and we can still see this structure here of the caregiver being held together by Neptune. And Neptune's the I forget what it's called, trident, sentinel. One that I tend to get confused, and I mentioned I did yesterday in one of my videos, is when I first look at it. Neptune and Uranus, they kind of look similar. Neptune's definitely the one that looks like a trident with the arrows, and Uranus is the one kind of with the antenna on it. And then Venus and Mars are probably pretty identifiable, as they are the feminine and masculine signs. So what's interesting when we first look at charts is I find it way more fun to look at the planets in a 3D format in a program like SolarScope, which we're going to bring up. But there's also that geometry that's there. So we're going to look at the 3D just so we can have some fun looking at some stuff, and then we'll jump back over to the 2D and look at the geometry of these relationships that we see and start to understand maybe what they mean and why astrology has worked in this way when it's been so up to astrologers of philosophical nature to interpret through intuition what this might mean. And we need to still continue to do that, especially because now we know how accurate it is to do so. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit in relevance to what we're looking at. I'm going to take away the asteroid belt for now and make this realistic. Okay. We're going to make the stars clickable. Okay. So here we are. Here is a realistic view without the asteroid belts and things in the way, so we can just look at the planets, some primary places instead. And see even that we don't follow even the same orbital path exactly. It's not perfect. The orbits, these lines that the planets follow, are somewhat off balance. That's what I was mentioning with Saturn and stuff. A lot of these orbits and stuff depend on Saturn and Jupiter to balance for us. And what's interesting as well is in deep space, I'll show you the bigger perspective of the galaxy, because it's really to understand the inner, to understand the outer helps a lot. We've learned a lot about our inner selves by learning about our physical body. And we've learned just about as much about our physical body as we can without looking deeper within. And this is where we're at consciously. I mean, that's what everyone's talking about, right? That's why we've all had to step up in our own lives and do like more self-care and self-awareness, is because we now have come to understand a little bit more in perspective of like where we are and who we are. We know that the Galactic Center is facing Sagittarius. If you put this on a wheel, what Sagittarius is pointing at with his arrow is the Galactic Center. Okay? So when you look, now when we can look at the constellation and we look over there, we know that that's where the Galactic Center is. Well, then why the heck is it not super, super bright? Well, there's galactic dust clouds and stuff in the way. We're on the outer limb of the galaxy. We're in one of the outer worlds. Okay? And that might click with some people who are trying to get on board with some of the more spiritual sight and study of some of what the holy books and the ancestors say and ancient aliens and all this stuff. It might start putting together the pieces a little bit more if we understand the perspective that we have here. When we look over there is the area of Sagittarius. When we look over there, okay, is deep space. Now we know of some things that are over there in deep space. Sure. We do. We know that there's other galaxies and things out there. Where's Andromeda Galaxy? That's one that this one has in it. Okay, so there's Andromeda. It's way over there. So this program does have galaxies in it. It's just like, it's not showing up in our galaxy because it's not in our galaxy. But that's the nearest galaxy to us. It is one that we can see, but it's far off, and the reason that we can see it is because it's not intervening over here with all our dust clouds. We can see it because we've got a window through to it. So we'll bring it back a little bit, and we can see some of these other stars, like, they're really far away, man. They're real far away. Other ones, not so much. The closer in we get, the closer they are. Some of the closest stars to us is Sirius, Procyon. So just to give you some idea, relevance, this is the ones that have lines are the closest ones to us. Okay. Vega isn't even all that far away. This was our old pole star. Polus is what it's at right now. So there's Octrus. I know I have some friends interested in Octrus. And it's located in Libra. Castor. Okay, so here's some relevance of like where stuff is bilocated. So when we look at the constellations, we've got to realize that some of those stars are closer than others. And it's interesting to see the correlation between the stories and not. Okay, I've got to pause. Okay, so hopefully my video and audio aren't going to be super, super, super delayed, but we'll see how far off it is. I was interrupted because I ran out of space on my thing, so hopefully we'll just be able to continue right along. It looks like I am only about a couple of seconds delayed. I'm going to try and fix it. Ready? Alright, that should be a little bit closer. I'm still going to be voice ahead a little bit by my click, but I think that'll be better. Alright, so I know I was out here in space clicking around, and one of the things that popped up when we got distracted here was earthquake premiere. So I am going to get back to the charts and maybe do a little bit more on that. So we were out here exploring, and in relevance to the constellations. And so what's interesting when we think about Sagittarius, you know, pointing to the Galactic Center this whole time, and the mythology that goes around the hunter, and the energy that Sagittarius has been used to describe Sagittarians in solar horoscope astrology that everyone's so familiar with. And if that you would hear Sun Sagittarius as being adventurous, far out, totally silly, and just really ready to go. the go-getter, fun, spontaneous, erratic, and until we started exploring deep space, we didn't really have any idea, because we can't see, it's all blocked off. We had no idea that this was actually nearing the center of our entire galaxy. We just can't see it. It's veiled. And that veil is really depicted of Neptune energy. And so in respect to like the planets and where they're at and what they mean to us is just a lot, because this is what our system is made out of. And one other thing that I think I just need to point out is that astrology has been using lines and mathematics to come up with averages for a system that we can understand. And this astrology is something that came right along with geometry and mathematics. And even before that, like, we have where we got the astrological signs and information was like written on the most ancient of ancient cave drawings. So we didn't know until we started studying everything what the lines of the system and everything like meant. We couldn't see it yet, but we could make it out mathematically in orientation to where we were. And something interesting to realize is the horizon, north and east, is different than the ecliptic and where the zodiac lies. Why the zodiac of all the stars and systems is important is because those are the ones that match our rotation through. See, these are all Gemini. Here we go. Crab, Leo. These are the ones that are actually aligned to our solar system. So they're the ones that we see and like are aligned to our horizon. So it actually is where we're centered around where we're at for things like astrology. So learning that information as humans early on has been nothing but helpful for all of our entire science, and it still is. Even things like figuring out the number of the houses and things. It's just, we've been a lot more accurate than we give ourselves credit for because of the uses of astrology. I'm going to be showing more of the whoa, that's the sun. All right, let's get out of the sun. One thing I want to show, I know you guys can't see it, it's about the bottom of the screen. However, I'm going to go back in time. Actually, we can do this. We're going to go back to the 1960s or so. Not for anything particular reason. I'm just trying to show, what this program is capable of, and just fast forward it. And we're going 1965, so you can see the date right up here, 67. And Saturn's even like booking it, and this is, we all know that this happens, but it's just not very often that we see it and its relevance, especially Pluto, who's so far up above there. So just to give you an idea of like, by plotting the planets and where they are in relevance to the time, it does matter. Like what crosses over Sagittarius energy when is super relevant. So as we get closer to our current time, Pluto is 2003, 2004, and it's going to cross over here, 2007, 2008, and it crosses over in the energy of Capricorn and the Goat. 2016, now we're getting closer to current day, current time. 2019, see, is where it crosses over the ecliptic. And it's lined up now with the planets. So when we're looking at our current day astrology as of today, that's where it's at. But it's going to continue on. It's going to continue on. Things are going to continue on. And they're going to line up in different ways. We're going to have Jupiter meet up with Neptune. Then Mars, Venus, Earth are all going to line up with Neptune. The Veil 2022. Uranus and Neptune, Jupiter, Uranus, Jupiter are going to meet up in 2024. And while over here, Neptune and Saturn are going to meet up in 2025, 6 maybe. You know, things are going to move in this way a lot of times. So why astrologers have been able to predict some stuff is because we care about the alignment of the planets, and we have a lot of proof now as to why the balance of the planets have something to do about our weather and everything of the sort. Get that closed down so it's not running in the background, hopefully. And this is why. So, let's go back and look at the charts real quick, because now we can see that those alignments, when they line up, are a big deal, especially for the outer planets. And so right now, as we saw it, that Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, those are all in the energy between the gateway that Capricorn is. And by gateway, in relevance to weather and things, we watch the moon, because when the moon passes over the gateway of Capricorn and between Sagittarius and Capricorn and Gemini and Cancer, when it passes over these areas, big change happens. And a lot of the time when it's over here in this Neptune Sagittarius energy. And this also happens to be when the moon is there, when the new moon and full moon are in phase. It means that the moon is on one side or the other, either closer or farther to the sun. So it's getting more or less of the solar activity at those times. And we're getting more or less of the activity because of that as well. So the moon, when it crosses over, for a lot of unknown reason, but we're starting to understand scientifically what this means, we watch the moon for these kind of positions and what angles it makes. Today, we have 2 of those triangles. We have one with the Neptune still, but if you haven't noticed, the moon is now making another one in the energy of Aries over to now Jupiter and the sun. So this is making this kind of caregiver double. So where did I get the caregiver? One of the most modern astrologers that's taken a lot of information and made it available for people like you and me to learn is he's come up with these star types, and they're based on the alignment of the planets and what they're doing at that time. So this is that caregiver card, but there's so many more shapes to it than that you can look at. And I just want to show you that these free books by Michael Irwin, he's transformed modern astrology and made all of these software programs available. The big ones that you hear about, like Sirius and AstroSearch and Blue Star and all these ones that you see all the time, that's this guy. And he's written a lot of books, and a lot of his books, there's 48 free ebooks and 35 free videos. I haven't even gotten through all of these, but some of them have been transforming. There's ones about the inner and outer effects of solar flares, solar storms, like we're going on right now, that's going on right now. So if you want to know about that, just come on over here and to astrologyland.com and take a look at some of these. He's been doing this a long time. And so one of the ones that I'm into really, really heavily is let's see here, it's the ones about the star types that you can learn about. Aspects, how to learn about astrology interpretations, a local space. So we're going to talk about that. I think what I'll do is I'll do a little bit of research and then do another video about the solar storm and the earthquakes that are going on, and cover that separately, since this has turned into a little bit more of a introduction to astrology, so I can talk about it more easily and just say that there is nothing about this that you can't learn yourself, because astrology is something that all of humanity has been learning consistently since we started to learn anything. It's one of the first things that we learned. So the study into it is one of the largest. So if we look at, today, and put this, we'll just start putting this together a little bit as far as what it means today, fresh, out of mind. When I look at this chart, what do I see? I see double caregiver. I see the sun in Gemini. And the sun is self, and Gemini is in teaching, is in learning. Okay, so the self is learning. My emotions of the moon are in Aries. Aries is fresh, new, childish, but also fun and willing to go first. So our emotions are probably very open-ended, and for those who do are struggling in this way, it might show up in child wounds, things like that. Then we have it trining over to, this Jupiter, Pluto, which is growth and personal power in Sagittarius, which we just learned is adventurous, new, not necessarily new, but also hunting and going forward always. We've got Saturn at home in Capricorn, of law and order in Capricorn. We better expect it to be strict, hard, and probably restrictive. And this is where we see, the restrictions in our law and the order of the way that we're handling things like viruses and personal protection and it's time to, as far as even in our personal, I know that's what we're seeing in the outer world, but it's also what we're feeling in our own personal lives. So this is a good time to get things done, to get things in order, to make the list right, to make rules for yourself, to find new routines, to kick bad habits, things like that. Uranus is also in Aries, and so it's carrying the same kind of fresh, new energy, but in a way that Uranus is the grandfather. So I think where this is coming from is a new look at old times. And we're learning, because of the sun in Gemini, what we did in the past to apply to the future. Because this is Aries, it's always, we're coming from Pisces, right? And Pisces has been all the way around the circle. And this is, we'll talk about the basics of how to look at what these mean. So opposition either can mean a struggle of imbalance between two things that should be in balance, a positive and negative. I'll look at duality. Squaring, which is right here in red. This is a 90-degree angle between them. And this is usually the challenge. So here we would interpret the challenge. There's a challenge between Mars being in Pisces. Mars is not happy in Pisces. And Mercury being in Gemini. Mercury isn't home in Gemini. The mind likes to learn. The warrior is swimming and is not a pirate. Does not want to be in the water. So the challenge is that our solar plexus, our will, our motivation is really slowed down in the water because we're not water creatures, we're earth creatures. So when we're not standing on Earth, Mars is just struggling. And Pisces has a lot to do with like the subconscious, the farthest out, the deep space. And Mars is not good with deep space. Mars is not, he's a warrior, not an astronaut kind of deal. Right? So there's the challenges. Like Mars is not really like in a good position. And the only thing that's helping him is this sextile This is this green with the X. These are openings. These are windows. They're windows of opportunity. They're the smaller version of a trine, and a trine is that harmonious aspect. Friends coming together, harmony between the two. And these almost always happen within the elements. So Neptune is in air of Aquarius, and the sun is about to enter and cross over into Cancer energy. Okay, but Neptune is also a water planet, and sun is a fire element. So those two might, create an open window, a wonky time. We're seeing a lot of solar activity at this particular time that this chart is being looked at. So all these things combined, we can start to see that there's just a lot of activity and ability to learn and to care about oneself enough to set personal boundaries, and it's okay to be a little bit more restrictive right now, especially when it comes to your personal lives. And what's really helping the inner warrior of the self is that caregiving aspect that Venus has in Taurus. Venus, again, is real close to that Abaturan alignment in Taurus. And this is Venus's home sign. It's where it's at the best. It's where reality makes sense. It's where things come to home. It's where things form. So at home, we're going to feel safe. We should feel safe at home. And so in a collective, everybody would be wise to feel at home where the heart is. So this might actually mean going home and maybe visiting family or a family member I know here pretty soon. Like my grandma's going to come up and be with my mom because she's in lockdown in her community center. She can't go anywhere. She can't see her friends because she's in a lockdown old folks community, but she's in really good health. And down in Palm Springs area, right? So she's well off. She's got a good situation going on, but it's not the security for her. The security for her is going to be being up here and being surrounded with her family, her babies, her grandchildren. So she's going to come up here for an undetermined amount of time. And, if she's still here by the time Christmas comes around, maybe we'll send her back home kind of deal. But still, she's coming up here to visit because that's where it feels to be at home. And I feel like that's a Venus call. That's a heart calling one home. And once it gets there, Venus or Mars, by the time she actually gets here in presentation, I bet you Mars will be in a better position, right? But it's still helpful. Venus and Mars go hand in hand, masculine and feminine, right? So just a little bit of a heads up and just where we're feeling and what that might be bubbling up and meaning to us. And the sun solar storms and stuff and what that means to us in the astrology of space and solar storms and stuff. It's an inner battle. We're seeing it come up all over the place in the earth do crazy things, but that also just means that there's going to be an inner storm as well. And just take the time over the next couple of days as it hits us to just allow that to be what it is so you can learn from it. Because that's where the sun's at. It's in Gemini. It's about learning from it. So if you want to catch up on the earthquake stuff and you want to follow along more, I may do another video this afternoon or at least tomorrow, cover more of what the solar storm brung to the earth. And maybe by understanding through seeing the storm and feeling the storm, we'll go back and understand more of the astrology behind it. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching, guys. I know we didn't hit every stone, but we did do some stuff and understand what it means in Church of the Planets. So thank you so much for watching. If you want to learn more, you can come back tomorrow. Just subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell. Considering this is a day-to-day update, it means that the most if you get it when it comes out. So if you want to work with me, I offer astrology services, energy healing, and spirit and soul coaching. So if you want to come on over to be a Patreon, you can get rewards and be featured on this thank you list. I don't have any Patreons right now, but if I did, I would shout out to you right now. So you can go do that at patreon.com. So if you have any questions or you want me to cover anything, feel free to drop your questions, and at the end of videos, maybe once or twice a week, I will answer some of those questions more directly when I can. So thanks so much. We'll see you tomorrow.